Welcome to Murder Road Trip. I'm Jess.
And I'm Haley.
Before we get started, we want to tell you about two things that are coming up. 2 pods a day and an upcoming meetup. 2 pods a day is a campaign that introduces listeners to 2 new podcasts every day for a month. Search 2 pods a day on social media to find out which pods are being featured and check them out. We will be featured sometime this month. Also, Haley and I will both be at a meetup in Kansas City on September the 27th. Yes, I am flying from New Zealand to come to a meetup. The meetup is at Westport Flea Market Bar and Grill from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. There will be Josh from the Our Americana Network, Charlie from Insight and Impact Statement, Lisa from Crime and Precedents, Tommy from the Curiosity Hour, Sam from the Breakers Podcast, and more. We would love to see you there. We will be snacking on key lime pie and Gatorade as we make our way to Tallahassee to discuss the murder of Jerry Michael Williams.
Jess, what made you pick key lime pie and Gatorade for today's trip?
Key lime pie is my favorite pie since I came to your mom's house and had Thanksgiving dinner and she made it for me. That's very Floridian, so I picked that. And also Gatorade is from Florida.
Who knew?
Certainly not me.
Are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
We lost the station again.
Keep trying.
I'm safe.
Hold on. Let me try this one.
Stop. That's it.
Turn it up.
Jerry Michael Williams was born on the 16th of October 1969 in Tallahassee, Florida, to parents Cheryl and Jerry Sr. Cheryl worked as a daycare provider, while Jerry Sr. was a Greyhound bus driver. Jerry, who was known as Mike, and his older brother Nick, grew up in Tallahassee and attended North Florida Christian School. Mike was very popular in school. He was on the football team. He was the guy that was friends with everyone. Mike was voted best personality. He was a hard worker and excelled in school. In the 9th grade, Mike started dating a girl named Denise. At 15, Mike took up hunting as a hobby. He continued hunting into adulthood and until his death. Mike enrolled at Florida State University in 1988, where he majored in city planning and political science. Mike worked at the Ketchum Realty and Appraisal Group while he was at university. Upon graduating in 1991, he gained a full-time position as a real estate appraiser with the company. Mike and Denise married on the 17th of December 1994 after remaining a couple all through high school and college. The couple had a daughter in 1999.
On the morning of December 16th, 2000, the day before his 6th wedding anniversary, 31-year-old Mike went duck hunting on Lake Seminole. He took his boat up to the lake, which is over an hour from Tallahassee. Mike regularly hunted and took his boat out. However, he didn't hunt alone. He always had someone with him. His father-in-law reported him missing when he failed to return home later that day. Mike's best friend, Brian Winchester, went out looking for Mike at the lake and found his boat on the shore. The boat's motor wasn't running, but the gas tank was full of petrol. The boat was found in an odd location. It wasn't where police expected it to be, considering the wind's effect on an unanchored boat. In fact, it was on the opposite shore. Mike was nowhere to be found. Police launched a search for Mike, which was called off after 44 days with no sign of Mike. Mike's car was found early on in the search. The area where it was found was described in one article as a, quote, undeveloped landing, where boats wouldn't typically be launched. To launch his boat at this location, Mike would have had to drag the boat down through the mud. This makes no sense when there were perfectly good boat ramps nearby that Mike used regularly.
The police's theory was that Mike had a boating accident while out on the lake. They assumed that the boat must have hit a tree stump, causing the boat to jolt, throwing Mike out. They assumed that Mike's body sunk to the bottom of the lake. However, when there was no sign of Mike's body after 44 days of searching, the police changed their theory. Now, they said that the body was eaten by alligators, and that's why they couldn't find him. Mike's disappearance was treated as an accident right from the beginning, and there was never any thought that there was foul play. Because of the lack of investigation, vital clues as to what happened to Mike were missed.
6 months after Mike's disappearance, his waders were found in the lake, along with his jacket and his hunting license. The alligator theory loses more steam here since there were no teeth marks on any of the belongings. The waders were found floating on the lake, and police were confused as to how they had been floating for 6 months and not washed ashore or been found. There was an extensive 44-day search of the lake. Surely they would have been found then. One of Mike's friends told police that Mike donned his waders once he was ready to start hunting, never when he was on the boat on his way to the hunting spot. So why would he have been wearing them on the boat the day he went missing? It doesn't make sense that he would break such an ingrained habit.
Only a week after the discovery of the waders, jacket, and hunting license, Denise had her husband declared dead on the 29th of June 2001. The official cause of death was accidental drowning, and Denise was the sole recipient of $1.5 million. Later, it would come out that Denise took out the life insurance policy 6 months before Mike went missing. The policy was sold to her by Mike's best friend and best man at their wedding, Brian Winchester, the same man who found Mike's boat. 2 years after Mike's disappearance, Brian divorced his wife. Brian and Denise married on the 3rd of December 2005, but separated in 2012. When Denise filed for divorce in 2015, Brian became enraged. A year later, on the 5th of August 2016, Brian hid in Denise's car with a gun. He held the gun to Denise and told her to drive somewhere remote and private. Denise didn't do that. Instead, she drove him to a drugstore parking lot, where she talked him out of hurting her. Denise drove Brian to his car, and the pair parted ways. As soon as she could, Denise called 911 to report the crime. After over a year awaiting trial, Brian was sentenced to 20 years for kidnapping, armed burglary, and domestic assault on the 19th of December 2017.
Mike's mom, Cheryl, felt sure that there was more to her son's disappearance, and she didn't believe for a second that Mike drowned as a result of a boating accident. Cheryl kept on the police to investigate further, and in 2004, the case was looked at again. This is when police spoke with reptile experts who said that it was very unlikely that Mike was eaten by alligators. For one, it was winter and alligators brumate in cold weather, which means they slow down and become sluggish. While brumation isn't the same as hibernation, there are periods of activity, and they aren't as likely to use their precious energy stores. It was also unlikely that, in the event Mike was eaten by alligators, there would be no trace of him left. This new information led police to 2 new theories. Either Mike was murdered, or he made himself disappear. I just want to stop and say real quick that I feel like this is something they totally could have checked years before.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. It would have taken very little time to call even a zoo and say, hey. And I mean, from what I've read, there are a lot of alligators in that area of the United States. Surely there'd be a lot of people they could call and just check.
Right. Like, oh, he was probably eaten by alligators. Cool. Case solved.
You'd think there'd be a little bit more investigation into that. After Brian's arrest, he confessed to knowing where Mike's body was. In fact, on the 20th of December 2017, the day after he was sentenced to 20 years in prison, Brian told police exactly where they could find Mike. Before his conviction, Brian was offered a plea deal, give the police the information about Mike, and Brian would have immunity. Police found the body at the end of Gardner Road, which appears to be a rural and isolated spot about 50 miles from Lake Seminole. There was evidence of foul play, and police now believe that Mike's death was a murder.
On May 8, 2018, only a few months ago from this recording, Denise was arrested for the murder of her then-husband. Her official charges are conspiracy to commit murder, first-degree murder, and accessory after the fact. She pled not guilty and will be held without bail until her trial, which is set for late September.
As we mentioned earlier, Brian took a plea deal which gave him immunity for his part in Mike's murder. According to Brian, the murder was Denise's idea. Brian and Denise had been seeing each other behind their spouses' backs for 3 years, but neither wanted to get a divorce. So, instead, they began to plan killing one of their spouses. It said in the research that Denise didn't want to divorce her husband because she was worried about the public perception of that, but yet she's fine with the public perception of her trying to commit a murder. I don't get it.
Priorities. Things are different in America, okay? We care about the sanctity of marriage.
I wish I could record the look that you're giving me right now. Oh my lord. Brian said that it couldn't be his wife because he didn't want to leave his son without a mother, so they went with the other option. Brian planned to meet Mike to go hunting, kill him, then meet his father-in-law to go hunting so he had an alibi, hoping the murder couldn't be pinpointed to an earlier time. On the day of the murder, Mike and Brian had plans to go hunting. Brian said that his phone was playing up, so Mike couldn't call him, and there would be no record of them talking that day.
When Mike and Brian got to the lake, Brian said he would drive the boat to their hunting spot. As they were driving across the lake, Brian pushed Mike into the water in the hopes that he would drown. As Mike was flailing in the water, he managed to take his jacket and waders off in the hopes to stop weighing himself down. Since the drowning plan wasn't working, Brian shot Mike in the head. When Mike was dead, Brian dragged him to shore, put Mike's body in his vehicle, and pushed the boat back out into the lake. Brian then drove home, got back into bed with his wife, and pretended that he had been there the whole time.
By this stage, Brian decided it was too late to go hunting with his father-in-law and called him to cancel. Instead, he went and bought a tarp and some weights and headed back towards the lake. He buried Mike's body at the end of Gardner Road, which is around 50 miles from where the murder occurred. Brian headed back home again. On the way, he dismantled his gun and discarded it out the window. He cleaned the truck and played the role of concerned friend. He went out with the search party to look for Mike, knowing exactly where he was. When Mike was declared dead, Denise organised a gravesite. Brian visited this site multiple times over the years.
When asked about the details of the motive, Brian said that Denise wanted Mike dead because she didn't want to have another child with him. They had told Mike's mom that they planned on 2 more children, in addition to their daughter. Denise also didn't want to go on their 6-year anniversary trip, which was planned for the day Mike was murdered. And, finally, one of the insurance policies was about to expire. The policy was for $500,000. Police have reason to believe that the murder was 9 months in the making. Brian hasn't been charged with Mike's murder due to the immunity plea, and as we said earlier, Denise's trial is set for September of 2018.
So I have a question about the multiple insurance policies and people getting them for their spouses. So when Denise gets an insurance policy for her husband, does he know about it? Or can people purchase insurance policies for people without them knowing?
These are all great questions. I honestly don't know anything about insurance, and I've often had the same questions. Maybe one of our listeners is an insurance agent and can let us know, because I honestly don't know.
I would be super interested because I just remember when I took out life insurance for me and my husband, I did my life insurance and he did his. He couldn't take out life insurance for me. Just wondering if it's really different there or if Mike would have known about it and she had to talk him into it or...
Well, Mike probably would have been okay with it because they just had a daughter. You know, the more life insurance, the better. I think a lot of people don't think badly about life insurance policies unless you're a true crime fan, and then you're like, that's a red flag. That person's going to be murdered soon.
Especially multiple life insurance policies.
I'm not sure if maybe they each had one through their employer and then got one through Brian. That would be something that hopefully we find out during the trial.
Yeah. I'm really interested to follow the trial. And this doesn't usually happen with cases that we cover. They've usually come to a conclusion, whereas this one we might have to do an update episode later in the year to discuss what goes on at the trial.
So normally at the end of an episode, we would discuss what we think, but because this case is still ongoing, Jess and I are going to keep our discussion to ourselves so that we don't get sued.
Just in case.
Well, to end the episode, would you like to play a road trip game?
Always.
All right. I have put together some trivia questions for you.
Okay.
Well, this one's easy and you don't need multiple choice for it because you picked it for today's snack. What is the Florida State pie?
Key lime pie.
Woo! There you go. All right. Which Florida city is the oldest European settlement in North America? Is it Tallahassee, St. Augustine, or Tampa?
I'm going to go with Tallahassee because it's the state capital and that's the only reason I can think of.
It's actually St. Augustine, and a lot of people don't know that it's like I said, the oldest European settlement in North America. Most people think that it's like Philadelphia or something like that, but it's actually in Florida, which is crazy.
How bizarre.
All right. What is the Florida state animal? Is it an alligator? Is it a bear? Or is it a panther?
I'm going to go with alligator because you took too long to think of the other two options.
It's a Florida panther, you dumbass.
There's no panthers in Florida.
Yeah, there's one named Florida Panther, and that's what their football team is called. I actually don't know if that's what their football team is called. It just sounded right.
Please don't rely on Haley for accurate sports information.
Never. Actually, don't rely on me for any accurate information.
This is true.
All right. What is the state capital of Florida?
Tallahassee. I know that one.
Well, speaking of state capitals, let's test your knowledge on southern state capitals. Also, I am the queen of transition phrases. So subtle. All right. What is the state capital of South Carolina?
I knew you were going to ask me this. Do you know what? I used to know all the American state capitals. Legit, I used to know them all off by heart. I'm going to say Charleston, but it's not Charleston.
It starts with a C, though.
Is it something random like... It's not Concord, is it?
No, it's Columbia.
Concord's the state capital of one of the ones up north. Columbia. I never would have gotten it. Next.
What is the state capital of Georgia?
Atlanta.
Good job.
Yay, finally an obvious one. Some of them are just not like the ones you'd think.
Right, and then I trick myself. I'm like, it can't possibly be the biggest city in the state. That would be too easy.
Yeah.
What is the state capital of Virginia?
Richmond?
You go, girl.
Woo!
All right, last one. Are you ready?
Yeah, hit me with it.
What is the state capital of North Carolina?
Is it the obvious one, Charlotte? Are you tricking me again?
Nope, it's not that one.
Can I phone a friend? Do you think Stephen Pappas is awake?
Probably not.
Okay. I don't know. I give up.
It's Raleigh.
Oh, yeah, I never would have gotten that. So I need to brush up on my state capitals again because obviously I've forgotten them.
Yeah, we're not going to let you back in until you know them all. A little birdie told me that the Moms and Murder podcast is also going to cover this case coming up this month. So make sure to subscribe to them and listen to their promo at the end of this episode.
Until next time, please remember to check your back seats, and we'll see you at the next rest stop.
If you didn't know already, you can also listen to me on the We're All Just Pretending podcast, where I give bad advice on purpose.
You can also find Haley and I on the Playlist podcast. Playlist is a podcast where Josh Hallmark, of Our Americana and the Karen and Ellen Letters, has different podcasters on to talk about their favourite songs. Every episode has a different theme and a new panel of podcasters.
You can find Murder Road Trip at murderroadtrip.com, on Instagram and Twitter at murdertrip, and on Facebook at Murder Road Trip Podcast. If you're interested in continuing the discussion, you can join the Murder Road Trip podcast group on Facebook.
If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice.
Please stay tuned after the music to hear from some other great podcasts.
Hey guys, it's Melissa
and Mandy
with the Moms and Murder podcast. We're a true crime podcast that's sure to make you laugh without compromising the seriousness of the content.
Despite our name, we aren't just for the moms. Our show is for all the Diet Coke drinking, chicken loving, Dateline watching people in your life. Come for the murder and stay for the witty humor and pop culture references.
And you never know, you may even hear from some of your favorite names in the world of true crime. like Dateline's Josh Mankiewicz.
Do you have a preference on what we call you? Josh, Mankiewicz, Manx, Sir Manx-a-Lot?
I don't hear Sir Manx-a-Lot quite as often as
I can make it happen for you. I will make it happen.
Broken Homicide's Derek Levasseur.
Are you tearing up on me? I saw you waiting.
So beautiful, everything you're saying.
Or even America's Sweetheart, Allie Sweeney.
The neighbor suggested that perhaps Kathleen had been attacked by an owl.
The owl theory that Melissa and Allie Sweeney believe.
Again, so judgy.
Check out Moms and Murder anywhere podcasts are found.